Ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. Social psychology. Ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. Bum, bum, bum. Social psychology. Social psychology. Social psychology with Scott. That's me. It's like the shitty version of Frasier Crane. Tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Ha 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 ha. Jesus. Well, hello. On this beautiful Saturday afternoon, it is Friday, February. That's a word, don't look it up. 22nd at 12:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hooray! I got all of the perception survey data parsed. Unfortunately, the results I don't get to give quite as concise as I wanted to earlier, but I took very ill this week, and the survey builder that I was using doesn't let me see more answers than for a 12-hour period unless I change the kind, and then I change the kind, and then it doesn't let me filter them. So I can give, I know the results from having parsed them originally, but we're just going to go over it a little bit. And I'm going to wait for a hot minute because I usually get like Kristen popping in and a couple others. And I want to actually see if this is this thing on? Oh, there it is. You don't need to speak, Scott. And we're going to pop open. I just want to make sure that the streams are live. And they should be. There we go. Oh, and I noticed I am chewing on my lower lip yet again because it is still wintertime. All right. So what we were going over was perception. And the survey that I had everybody take, I'm going to actually go over the survey, although it is closed. You'll be able to see it here. And the point of perception isn't just, the point of this survey from the teacher's standpoint wasn't just to see how you perceive things, but gender differences in perception, as well as sex differences in perception or importance of characteristics and evolutionary mating traits. So the first part of this, and it was important to ask whether or not the people were male or female genetically, and culture does play a role in this too, because Eastern cultures play a great deal of difference than Western cultures when you deal in collectivistic versus individualistic. And so it was important for a couple of parts for the second as well. I didn't want to put it at the very first because I didn't want people going, why does he need to know this? So I buried it after the round of questions, so that way people were already used to answering questions. And so let's get right into the meat of it. So the characteristics here was to rating the characteristics was more of an exercise to see what was more important for men versus women when looking for a mate, because what this chapter had gone over was evolutionary necessity, evolutionary selectivity of what helps the humans procreate and genes continue on. And with the men, it was oftentimes, obviously very early on, it was all about getting as many babies as you could, so that way your genetic line survives. With the women, it is more about finding and selecting a mate that will help to take care of you and the offspring. Just because of the way, the human animal originally worked. And I found it kind of interesting and this is a no kidding moment, but I found it a little bit interesting when reading, men have basically, after maturity, after sexual maturity, an unlimited lifetime supply of genes to disperse and just keep giving out babies. And women, after sexual maturity, have a much smaller window. And that will play into the psychology of, if a man can just keep going and making babies everywhere, a woman has to be, genetically speaking, a little bit more selective, because if she wants her offspring to survive, especially in hunter-gatherer times, the woman realistically needs to select someone that will be stronger, have more traits that will help care for her and the offspring. I think I've kind of said that redundantly now a few times. However, there you go. It does not let me... Oh, maybe it will let me filter. It will. It will. All right. I didn't think it was gonna. I'm going to pop back over to that screen. Does everybody see the monkey face with somebody squatting on his nose? I thought that was hilarious. But, so the survey was requiring you to rate the following characteristics in terms of their importance to you in choosing a mate. Indispensable, important but not indispensable, desirable but not important, and irrelevant. The way I often have referred to these when talking about them with friends or family was irrelevant, not important, not indispensable, indispensable, just to make it a little bit less of a mouthful there. Oh, I did not switch over, so hang on. Social psychology. Oh, I did not crop my webcam as well as I had thought. Let me fix that. Ba-dum. Social psychology. Boop. My green screen going a little off camera there. Alrighty, here we go. So, irrelevant, not important, not indispensable, and indispensable. What we're doing is I had a total of 43 responses over the course of about 4 or 5 days. Now, my assignment was due on Sunday night, and I put this out at about 5 p.m. on Sunday, as I had to take care of someone that was ill on Saturday, and I had kind of forgotten the rest of the week, doing some reading and other research. So you'll forgive my lateness. But on Sunday, from like 5 p.m. till, I want to say 10 p.m., I had about 33 responses. And then I ended up getting about 10 more over the course of the next week before I just ended up closing the survey. As I had a couple more people wandering in. I love how that microphone shocks me when I touch it. That is well grounded. So this is actually accumulation of 43 responses, not the 30-ish that I had reported on my original report, but it looks like it held pretty true. Found a couple of more interesting things that you'll see at the end when it comes to the second question. So overall, male and female. We're going to actually jump ahead a little bit. So out of those 43, we had 25 female respondents and 18 male respondents. So a pretty good slice there, a decent reporting. We originally only needed 8, so I kind of jumped a little further than I suppose I needed to. But that's me. It does give us a good idea of, as it's close to half, a good idea of, a slice of the selection across genetic lines. So, overall, the highest report, I'm going to touch my screen because I'm an idiot. So the highest average between both men and women was coming in at the dependable character. Boop! With, won't let me move my arm over. 86%. Everything is backwards. There we go. I'm brilliant. So, dependable character came in at 86%. Of all respondents thought that that was an indispensable, must-have trait. And I thought that was kind of interesting because according to the reading, it showed that men were supposed to find attractiveness as the highest one, and women were supposed to find dependable character, mutual attraction, love, and so finding that dependable character. Now, just a little bit more info on the people that we surveyed, or I surveyed, was I did have a couple of people that were younger, that were teen, preteen, but only one or two of them. And the rest were all mid-20s up to about 50s and early 60s, with I'd say the mean of it being around 35 to 40 years old when I weighed it out. And that's just based off of the guess, based off of the people that I know took it, as they're all friends and family, and I'm a little bit older, so I know most of my friends skew towards the 30s and above. So I would suspect that dependable character ended up being a little bit more of a desirable trait because people by my age range don't necessarily look more for attractiveness in terms of choosing a mate, but being able to rely on somebody that they're with. And so that it did make sense given what I believe the cohort to be. From there, 83% came in, and this is kind of boop, mutual attraction / love. So this is the more classical sense of the word love, not so much attraction and sexual attraction, but mutual attraction, meaning you want to spend a lot of time with a person, you want to be in love with that person, you want to really enjoy what that person brings to the table, and that's at 83.7%. Again, a little bit surprising, or not surprising, but different than what the text indicated I should be reading, but given that this text is geared, or this class is oftentimes skewed or geared towards a younger student, I am almost curious to see if that was more based off of younger people when they're first doing the mate selection dance, peacocking them feathers all out. Whereas when you get older, that mutual attraction love, you do really want someone that you can actually honestly be in love with. So across both male and female, dependability and actual love came in very high. Things that they cared least about all the way across. Sorry about the scrolling. I got to just kind of go back and forth a little bit because I zoomed it bigger so it could be read on the screen. Chastity. No previous sexual experience. And I thought that was kind of interesting because for me, mate selection, it's entirely irrelevant. You know what? A woman that is sexually experienced and feels comfortable with herself and isn't shy or scared or, that nonsense that happens when you're a teenager and everybody goes through, of just not feeling sexually confident, is oftentimes associated with, inexperience. Granted, I don't necessarily think that it's good that everybody should just go around and sleep with as many people as possible. I mean, it's not like Pokemon. You don't want to collect them all. However, I have no qualms, me personally, about being with someone that has had a significant number of partners. And it looked like most of the people that I know, friends and family, again, about the same age range, more than likely assuming that at their age, mid-30s and above, it'd be a little harder to find that virgin, the 40-year-old virgin, Steve Carell. It was a little bit interesting to see that there were some that thought it was desirable, but not important. Important, but not indispensable. And then there were 3 that did say indispensable, and I suspect I know who those are, but this is a completely double-blind survey. I don't know who reported them, but I have guesses based off of some of my. I do have a couple of younger friends that are very, very religious, and possibly a couple of younger family members that are also somewhat religious. So I was a little bit interested to see if that came out across, and we'll find out in a little bit if that's male or female skewed. From there, desire for home and children was very important. Came out at about 34%, 35% thought it was completely indispensable, and then important prior to that. Very few of them actually did not want their mate to have a desire for home and children. Education and intelligence does seem to match up. It is somewhat important for most people there, the majority. And emotional stability and maturity I thought was rather interesting as well, because we've all dated people in our lives that, or maybe I know I have, that had a lower level of emotional stability and maturity. And for me, it was just a huge turn off, not just sexually, but emotionally, companionship way, being with somebody that seemed very emotionally unstable and very immature. I think emotional instability, for me, I think I could handle a little bit more than immaturity, as I've been with people of both kinds, and it was harder for me personally to be with someone that was immature. You really do, once you start getting into your 30s and 40s, start going, do I really want to deal with this nonsense anymore? I mean, I get it. I was there. I was a teenager once. I was 20-something once. But, do I really want that in my life anymore? Almost nobody cared about social status. A little bit surprising. Did have 9 people. I didn't quite read that. I'll be curious to see if that was more male or female oriented. Good cook and housekeeping, not super important. People kind of want a decent meal, but it's not a deal breaker. Finances kind of landed middle of the road. It wasn't completely unimportant, but it also wasn't completely necessary for the majority. Looks like it's landing in about 85% there, a little under. Good health did skew a little bit as towards more important, but not indispensable. Realistically, if you're looking for a mate, why would you want to date someone that was in terrible health? And that reminds me of all these psychology things that you learn when you pay attention. When I had dated someone 2 years ago, I had my back go out. I slipped a disc, and I was just in terrible pain, and I was going through a really rough patch, which we've discussed before. And she broke up with me, and I couldn't figure out why. Oh, why? What did I do wrong? And I knew I had done a few things not quite well. I was kind of a grump all of the time. But inside I knew I was still a good person, and inside in my head I was useful and valuable and funny and witty and charming. But on the outside I was just being a big grump, and then I had health problems. And so it occurred to me that, well, yeah, who really wants to get into a relationship with someone that not only is kind of grumpy, but also in bad health? Do you really want to spend the rest of your life taking care of somebody? Not really. Good looks, interestingly enough, across both male and female, 0 of the respondents of the 43 reported that good looks were 100% necessary, were indispensable. However, you will see almost half did say they were important. What was mine? And then almost the other half said it was desirable but not entirely important, whereas a few said, nah, just give me a good person, doesn't matter what they look like, which I find interesting. And I do kind of wonder to what degree people would have to have just an amazing personality in order to attract a mate to offset any non-classical looks. Meaning, chiseled face or big breasts, slim waist, big muscles, whatever. in order to attract a mate to begin with. You'd have to really have your charm game on point, as the kids say. Going back to that mutual love and attraction, really high for pretty much everybody. Pleasing disposition, that did rank pretty high. Almost everybody says they want to be with somebody that's in that has a pleasing disposition. And I rather like that, and it goes back to what I was saying is, if you've got bad health and you're a grump, yeah, I would have dumped me too. Refinement and neatness didn't score very high, kind of middle of the road. Yeah, I'd like it, but isn't necessary. Education did not score terribly high. Most people said it's desirable but not important, or less. And similar to religious backgrounds, the overwhelming majority said, nah, no thanks, don't really care. I want a good person. With a couple, and again, I think it skews towards some of my younger friends that I've met at various social dance functions. And they were 15, 16 years old, and they were still being brought up as very Christian. So I can see how that would skew that. Hey, Jalan Prex, a paraplegic dwarf who has had good luck attracting a girlfriend and is currently engaged. Man, that is fantastic. I'm going to stick the chat on. I had closed it off because I didn't like where it was behind me. But there is room over on this side where I've moved myself to. Don't know if I have to refresh that. Give me 1 sec while I figure out. Refresh cache of, sorry. It probably will show up the next thing. That charm, that personality, that's the way to do it. I've never thought of myself as overly attractive, and so I've always tried to be a little bit charming. But I was very awkward with women and girls early on. I didn't date pretty much at all as a teenager or a 20-something guy. Very long-term relationship in my 20s and 30s, so it wasn't really an issue. But yeah, if you can, honestly, as I had started dating again in my mid-30s, the power of laughter, and I mean, it's very cliche. You hear it in advice, and you hear it in cheesy rom-coms, and you hear it in, TV shows and sitcoms. Make her laugh, make her laugh, make her laugh. And in all honesty, that has been something that I've found has been kind of a turn on for the women that I've dated, is being able to keep them engaged, make them laugh, make them feel happy and wanted. And so, anyone can find a mate if they really want to put the effort in. I think it comes more down to it. So, thank you for that, Jalan Prex. And how are you today? Before I jump in, it's always good seeing you. Check this real quick. No, maybe he popped out. Oh, doing well. Good. We're at background, political background. Now that one is kind of a meh all the way across, you'll notice. 30% said they didn't care at all. Another 30% said it'd be desirable but not important. And then there was about 23% that said important but not necessary. And then another 14% that said necessary. So it's interesting that fewer people care about religion in their mate than they do about politics. And if that tells you anything about how kind of ignited and unfortunate our current political landscape is right now, you'd almost think that it should be the other way around. You'd care more about your afterlife and your eternal soul and your happiness and all of that kind of stuff. But instead, we care really more about taxation and whatnot. Yeah, I'm doing real well, Jalan Prex. I was real sick on Tuesday. My daughter was real sick on Tuesday as well. It was just real bad. It was, I think, norovirus. I woke up at about 5:30 in the morning and wanted to die. Oh my God, you never feel so old as when you're sick when you're over 40. Like every joint and bone in my body was inflamed and stiff and sore, and I just wanted to die. It just hurt, and I just laid there. Meh. Sociability, how much they like, enjoy being around other people and how social they are. And it looks like the majority of the people would like some kind of sociability, about 92% there, do want their mate to be somewhat outgoing and sociable. So kind of interesting results there. And now the next part, and actually we're going to wait to go to that because I want to filter these results as we're still talking about those. And we're going to, scrolling too much. And we're going to look at males first. Save. So now these are just the male results. And it looks like, wonder if I can open up this and do side by side. Duplicate, or does it log me out? Oh, good. We're going to collapse that sidebar. We're going to collapse that sidebar. Hey, Daniel Schneider, how you doing? Yeah, I just turned off the house. Man, it was close. I wonder if I can get this one. I don't want that above it. I want it below it. Boop-a-doop-a-doop. All right, actually, I think I might hide the chat again for a quick moment. Go away, chat. Just that way we can compare these results a little bit more. Oof. And I'm going to have to scroll down. There we go. And I wonder if I can... Nope. Oh, let's see if I can. Let go. Trying to get just a little bit more over so that way we can apples and oranges it. Here we go. That's better. And we're going to filter this to be female. And this one, let me just double check, make sure that filter is, oh hell, is it saving it across both? No, I don't think it is. I think as long as I don't refresh the page, we'll be fine. In other words, I'm not just ugly, but I'm ugly and not terribly funny. Hey, Alan. Great seeing you again, buddy. Pastor Jeb. Hey, Megan. Good to see some old friends showing up. So now when we get into, we're actually going to dig into the results here. Left side is male, right side is female. The males, ambition, industriousness, seem to care a little bit less about ambition than the women did. And that kind of lines up with, oftentimes, if you think about it in terms of women for their mate selection are looking for somebody that more often is going to be able to provide for them in the offspring. I'll just shove myself over a little bit more. So that does line up what the text in the reading says. However, it is not too vastly different. With a couple of men saying they just really don't care at all if the women have any ambition. Just stay at home and eat nachos and whatnot. The chastity was the one that I was more curious about. Of the male respondents, fewer men cared if women had ever had a sexual partner or not than women. Although you will notice only the women wanted men that had never had a sexual partner before. And again, I think that goes back to, I'm fairly certain those respondents were the some of my teenage friends from some of the social dances that I go to that I know are very, very Christian, very religious. And so I suspect it is probably them reporting, because I didn't, at the social dances, you always get a lot more girls than guys. And so I just, the people you meet. So of that, the men really didn't care if the women had slept with people before, but the women wanted a more chaste partner. Dependable character. Women and men almost coming in at exactly the same percent there. Pretty close. With only one woman saying she didn't care if he was dependable or not. I don't know which one of my friends, my female friends, does not want a dependable man. But I don't know, that's a little sketchy. Yeah, you do whatever you want. I don't care. Come home, don't come home. But dependability does rank high across both of the genders or sexes. Desire for home and children. We're looking at 65% of the really want and about 75%. So men and women do come pretty close. Although another interesting thing here is, remember, I can't point that far over because of the green screen. On this side here, this is all women. So the females, go away. The women are actually the ones that didn't want men, that had a desire for home and children. I wonder what's going on culturally right now. Although, again, we have to take into account the age range of the respondents, typically skewed towards higher. So it could be desire for children was less important because a lot of the women that took this survey were going to be over 30, possibly even over 40. So they don't really want more kids at that age. Quite possibly. I have no way of knowing, but if I were going to hypothesize on that, it would probably be for that. Whereas the men did want home and children. Interesting. Is it spread that genetic seed? Or is it wanting something more in their lives, psychologically? More of that sense of completeness and that sense of family. Really makes me want to dig deeper into these surveys. Hey, Kristen, how you doing? Jalamprex, going back. You'd rank religious and political as high because you wouldn't necessarily want to be with, if you were an atheist, you would not want to necessarily be with a Christian, is how I kind of read that. Or if you were, a Democrat, you wouldn't want to be with a GOP, Trump supporter or something to that effect. I can see that. That does make a high level of sense. Education and intelligence. It looked like women do want men to have a higher education and a higher level of intelligence, coming in at about 88%. 44% must have intelligence and education. Another 44% say it is important, but not entirely necessarily. Whereas with men, still close, clocking in at that 70%, but that is quite a bit of a dip, almost 20% shy. And it looks like it's coming of where the men will accept some dumb but sweet, dumb but pretty. Who knows? Dumb but sexually active. Emotional stability and maturity. I don't know if I can get that to line up quite the same. Close enough. Yep, men and women, all the way across the board, they want emotional stability and maturity. Not a huge surprise there. Favorable social status or rating. It looked like more women wanted the men to have a favorable social status, and that probably plays in the same as the education and intelligence. Women, at least in the American culture, I don't believe we had anybody outside of the U.S. other than possibly Pastor Jeb, who is Canadian, report in on this survey that I'm aware of. And his single answer wouldn't skew the results, but more women want the men to have higher status and higher rating in the social circles. Good cook, a little bit of middle of the road. Everybody was like, meh, can be. Not a deal breaker. As long as he's nice to me, As long as he or she's nice to me, decently educated, mildly sociable. Good financial prospect. Here we go. Now, although the percent is slightly different, 8% versus 11, female to men, still the total number of respondents was the same, where 2 out of all of the respondents of men and 2 out of all the respondents of women wanted their mate to be a good financial prospect. Whereas the women overwhelmingly wanted the man to be a good financial prospect at 56%. The men were vastly less at 27% as important, just desirable. So again, it falls in line with what the text and, evolutionary survival theories and cultural theories state is, women are looking for some men or mate to, this survey did not state whether or not you were homosexual or heterosexual, but the assumption here at this point, given knowing my family and friends, just about everybody I know is heterosexual. At least that I believe took this survey. So, and even then, the sample size wouldn't be too skewed by having 1 or 2 not. So, falling in line, men do seem to want different things than women do. Good health. Interestingly enough, men wanted women in better health than the women wanted men. Dad bods are a thing, I guess. Good looks. None of the men and none of the women cared if they had good looks. However, just about the same, 80% versus 88%. So the men slightly skewed higher. The men slightly wanted the women to be more attractive than the women wanted the men. A little unsurprising, but I was actually, based off the reading, expecting it to be higher, where the men were going to want way more sexy looks than the women, but it plays out almost the same. Mutual attraction and love, both sides really do want to be in love. They want to feel that I'm in a good relationship, I'm with somebody that cares about me. Pleasing disposition, both want people, look at that right across the board, almost the same. Both want people that are kind to them, that are nice, that are not bitchy, not angry, not mean. Honestly, bitchiness is my biggest turnoff next to immaturity in mate selection. I have been on a lot of dates in the last few years, and man, it's like an interview process for a job, and I don't want to spend an entire career with somebody I can't even communicate with because all they, they're just terrible, mean people. Refinement and neatness. It showed up pretty decently well. Nobody really needed it or didn't need it. But it looks like everybody wants people to be a little bit tidy. Clean up after yourself. Do your own dishes. Similar education. Kind of the same, middling of the road. Not super important for men or women. Can or can't. Similar religious background. More important or less important for men than women. Yep. 100% of the necessity, meaning people that want it to be, were women. You have to have a similar religious background. But the way Jalamprex put it, they could be answering, because I could be just misunderstanding their response to the answer, which is I took it as you have to have a religious background, whereas Jalamprex more correctly stated you want to make sure that they have the same religious beliefs or expectations as you do. And I rather like that. That wording that question could have been a little bit clearer. But keeping in mind, I did not word these questions. These were all by the professor. Similar political background. Women were also more interested in that. Now, don't look at this, because those will say the same thing, but that's because I didn't filter the second question yet. I have to filter them question by question. And then sociability, it looks like, again, just about down the middle of the road. Everybody wants a mate that has some level of sociability. So go out, have a good time, hang out with some friends, get a drink, grab a beer, grab a burger. Oh, don't shock me, microphone. Yeah, but you know what the best thing is, Pastor? This is on YouTube, so you can always go back and it's on my Twitch, YouTube, Mixer, and Facebook. So you go back and watch it if you're really interested. Kristen, somebody that isn't an asshole. Yep, that's the idea. I want to be with somebody that can be a good person. Now, I don't need this for the second question. Then I'm going to pop that back over. We will throw the chat box back up. I'm going to move it out of the way just a skosh. I'm going to scroll on down so you can read a little bit. Now, this second question was realistically, not realistically, but rather was a random question. So there were two, and the paragraphs themselves were identical with one exception. It'd be hard to tell, Alan, if anything was an outlier at this point because I don't have enough data to show who the outlier would be. So, like, I had a few results. You had a couple of 2 or 3 offs and a couple of 1-offs. So those would kind of be outliers. But the problem is I don't know anything about them other than their sex. So knowing that they, one male answered this way doesn't really help me if I don't know their age or any of their demographic information, their religious backgrounds, their political affiliations, their education, their nutrition, et cetera, and culture and ethnic background. So, no, Kristen. So going back to the other question number, now technically question 2 was what's your sex, but that so going to question 3 and question 4 are the same, with the exception of I set it up to randomly assign, and you would only see one of them, and it was completely random, one of the questions to you. So you wouldn't know that there was a second one. And the only difference was it changed whether or not it was Mr. Michaels or Mrs. Michaels. And the intention here, from what the professor had set up, was to see if there was a gender bias in perception of whether or not you felt the other gender, or if there was an unfair gender bias against male or females in being a parent based off of this story. And it really surprised me, the results, because I expected 100% of my survey respondents to say that they strongly agreed that both Mrs. Michaels and Mr. Michaels were poor parent. But what I got were actual responses where some of you, or you, and I'm saying that because a lot of the people watching were people that took this survey, responded that they didn't think that they were necessarily a poor parent. And the suspicion by the professor was that some people would not believe that Mr. Michaels was a poor parent because there is a gender bias to where men are believed to be allowed to have sexual indiscretions, whereas women should not be. And although that played out, it didn't play out in the way that I thought, and this is why. So, of all respondents, male and women, men and women, male and female, when it was Mrs. Michaels, and I'll read the paragraph just for anybody who's not taken the survey and didn't want to have to try and read it themselves. Actually, I can scroll into. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, while the cats weigh, the mice will play, says the old saying. However, for an Oklahoma woman, the mouse got caught at the game. It seems that last month, Carl Michaels was away visiting relatives for a few days, leaving the 2 Michaels youngsters in the care of their mother, Kathy. Oh, got to watch out for the women named Kathy. Just kidding. Mrs. Michaels, however, took the opportunity to rendezvous with her secret lover, leaving the two children, Mark, 5 years old, and Tommy, 3 years old, home alone as she apparently had done on several such occasions. This time, however, fear and hunger, after many hours of being alone, drove the Michaels children to the streets in search of their wayward parent. Neighbors found the children wandering in the street several blocks from the Michaels' home. The police were called in, and in the process of reuniting the children and their mother, the whole story came out. You get caught. Always get caught. I don't see what I did was too terrible, Kathy told an obviously upset spouse. Would you agree that Mrs. Michaels is a poor parent? So of all survey respondents, I expected everyone that I gave this to give the answer to, I strongly agree that Mrs. Michaels is a poor parent. However, of the 25 times that this question was randomly doled out to both male and female, only 21 said they strongly agreed. There were 3 people that did agree that Mrs. Michaels was a poor parent, and there was 1 person that neither agreed or disagreed. And I can only speculate as to what kind of logic, reasoning, rationale, or psychological state the person who neither agreed or disagreed with. Makes you wonder, is that person currently in a bad relationship where they're contemplating doing something similar or have done something similar? Do they just really not care? Pastor. Thanks. However, I also got the same for when it was Mr. Michaels. Except it did show up that 2 of the 18 responses strongly disagreed when it was Mr. Michaels. They actually have the belief that when Mr. Michaels cheated on the wife, left kids at home, that they strongly disagreed that he was a poor parent. None of the respondents, of which there were more, 25 versus 18, believed that Mr. Michaels was not a poor parent for going out and doing that. 1 somewhat agreed, 1 agreed or disagreed, 1 agreed, and 7 strongly agreed. So still overwhelmingly, most everybody thought he also was a bad parent for doing it. You know, Kristen, I would say someone maybe wanted to mess up the results, but having 2 people do it seemed far less likely. And then this will actually kind of this is really what blew my mind more. Only 1 of the 2 people that strongly disagreed, that didn't think that Mr. Michaels was a poor parent, was a male. That means also 1 of the women that took the survey didn't think that he did anything wrong. And if you take a look, more women, because this is showing now male responses, more women justified it for Mr. Michaels than men. So that is men, how they viewed Mr. Michaels' indiscretion. All but 1 thought he was a bad parent. Come on, you can do it. Whereas the women were all over the place on it. And that really fascinated me. I entirely expected more men to justify him, whereas the gender bias does still apparently exist there, but it is not entirely based off of men's perception of men. It is also women's perception of men and parenting and acceptable behavior. Let's pop back up here, just for sake of completeness. This is when Mrs. Michaels had done it. The men Neither agreed or disagreed. Agreed that she was a bad parent, or strongly agreed that she was a bad parent. Whereas the women were a little bit more uniform in all agreeing that she was a bad parent. So women, just based off of these survey results alone, seem to be less tolerant of other women's indiscretions and more tolerant of other men's indiscretions. And I find that fascinating. Why? I want to get into the why. I want to put a paragraph. I want to go back in time and put a paragraph afterwards that says, why did you choose this? The two children, home alone, 3 and 5, so you can go out and get a booty call. But you think it's okay for men and not women? In your perspective, Daniel, this kind of research people tends to... I'm not sure what you're saying. The English is a little weird, or typos there. Are you saying nice people... people are just trying to be nice and responding in a non-judgmental way? I mean, you could maybe say that a little bit, but given that this is a completely double-blind survey, there'd be no motive or incentive for you not to be completely honest with your answers. So I'd say, you know, there's always a margin for error, Daniel, but given the number of respondents behind it, kind of leads me to believe that this was a pretty true result, or pretty true application of people's beliefs. So that was the results of the survey. Both perception of men and women, gender roles and biases. Oh, Kristen, please don't. This is actually for like the rest of my life kind of stuff. I'm going to get my master's so I can be a therapist and help people, and I'm going to get my PhD so I can do research on it. Please don't throw off my results. I won't be posting them for you. I'm going to unfriend you. So the second part was about perception of men and women, whereas the first part was about mate selection, split across, and both were, you know, kind of are very highly perception related, split across gender lines. And I'm going to pop this back over to here. So, man, I need a tan. I am so pale. You could see through me. Alan throws in, I wouldn't say it's okay, but stereotypically women are held to a higher standard when it comes to raising children. Yeah, I'd say there, you know, Alan, I would say that would be more true 20 or 30 years ago than necessarily today, because I know a lot of single dads or fathers that are with, you know, a second mate that have that are help raising other kids. And I think culturally we're moving away from just it's the woman's role to be the parent. But I wouldn't say you're not correct. I would just say I think it's moving a little bit more away than it used to. And you know what, to argue your point a little bit, I guess I'm going to flip-flop a little. I have gotten a number of times where women are very surprised by the amount of time that I spend with Emma, by the amount of activities that I do with her. You know, I fence, I fight, I teach her how to play video games and how to paint miniatures and how to ballroom dance. And you know, we spend a ton of time together. We play baseball. She loves baseball, and we throw the football around, and just she loves to wrestle. And so, you know, to argue your point a little bit, I do get a lot of people that are surprised at how, and they're going, you're such a good dad. I'm like, it's easy. You just spend time with your kid. How freaking hard is that? But apparently it's still a little bit more surprising, which honestly surprised me because I just love spending time with Emma. She is just the best. She's smart as a whip, and she just wants to do everything that I'm doing, which is great because I want to do everything that I'm doing. Kristen, let's see. Your brother didn't change a diaper until your nephew was 3 months old. Oh, my God. Now, to me, that's a little funny because even as Emma's mom will argue, excuse me, I'll catch in my throat. I changed about 80 to 90% of the diapers of Emma's diapers, but it was mainly because I was a stay-at-home dad and we didn't have a ton of money for daycare, so she also came with me to my business. So I had Emma like 80 to 90% of the time for her first 3-4 years, and diapers are. I think we started potty training her. Started to get it at about 24 months, and she was probably fully potty trained at 26, 28 months, somewhere in there. Yeah, Pastor Jeb, I've been meaning to. It's things have just been a little busy, a little hectic lately. I had to pick up a second class to graduate, and I had to do a bit of running around, and then I got real sick and this week, and so I will be covering more psychology. I'm actually going to pop open real quick and see what my next chapter is. Social psychology. Social psych. And I have an exam coming up I got to take within the next week. So the next chapter I think I'm going to be covering, because I like studying based off of this type of stuff, because talking about it is a really great way to internalize the topics when you talk with it about somebody. I've got to talk about the self, attitudes, behavior, and persuasion, perceiving others, influencing and conforming, and liking and loving. So although this was over perceiving others, I think we're going to go after influencing and conforming and liking and loving. Yeah, because it's chapter 5 through 8. So attitudes, behavior, and persuasion I think would be a really good one for streamers. I have noticed that of the social psychology, this entire class would lend itself extremely well to social media influencers and online game streamers, because it talks so much about not only how to get along with others, but how to influence others, how to influence other people's behaviors, how to kind of guard yourself against other people's behaviors. And I think a lot of people get a little bit put off by the term psychology because either you don't believe that psychology has a value, or they think that psychology is a little bit more egg-headed stuff. I think there's like 30, Daniel. This is entirely online. I'm going to be doing, as I have to get a full-time job, I couldn't risk not being able to take a job or choose between job or, career, because I've got at least 2 to 5 years before I can get a job in psychology. I will be graduating with an associate's in psychology in the next 2 months to go along with my bachelor's in business administration, but in the fall I should be starting on my master's in psychology. So this kind of thing is what I'll be streaming more often, while still doing some game development stuff on the side. I have noticed that given the master's will take 2 years, more than likely. And then the PhD after that will be 3 years, according to the counselors. And I've got a couple of friends that are actually professors that teach at Michigan State University, and they say it should be about 5 years to get my PhD from where I'm at now. Never realized, because I never look at myself talk, it looks like my lip from here over, that way, is thicker or more, almost like swollen. I'll have to look. Jesus. Sorry about that. And if anybody likes, what I could do is, if anybody is really interested, Pastor, if you are, I'm going to put a link to where you can download the textbook from that I've been going through. It is a PDF. The professor had a free textbook. Yeah, Alan, you're so clever. Go blue. I apparently will possibly bleed green. I've got to actually, as I've discussed earlier, I have a misdemeanor on my record from when I was 18, and I'm getting that expunged in 10 days. Yeah, I had to wait 3 months before I could get it to court, but I've noticed I've been being passed over for job interviews because of my misdemeanor. And it's 25 years old. It's going to be expunged. It's going to be rubber stamped through. And I've noticed the PhD application also asks if you've ever been convicted of anything. And if I get it expunged, then I can answer no because it won't show up on my record. It'll be as if it never happened. So I'm waiting until then to do my application. But I've got my essays. I've got my referrals, so it should be pretty straightforward being able to get in, and if not, then I've got some backup plans of other places that I can attend as well. But I'm going to post a link, where the heck is that, to the textbook. Oh, here we go. I'm going to make sure the link is still working, or make sure that it works. Yep, okay. So, post it here. Yep, I'm going to put it in all of them, Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and Mixer. Although I know we don't really have many people watching from Mixer. Oh, it is literally the last thing I posted in Mixer because there was nobody watching the chat. And YouTube as well. Social psychology. Da-dum, bum, ba-dum. All right. Chat. Got it. And there you go. So if anybody's interested, it's a free PDF download. Just choose digital PDF, unless for some reason you really want to print out 700 pages. I mean, you do you. No judgment. And then you can keep along. Yeah, I'm going to post the surveys and stuff on Twitter. I will undoubtedly have more over the course of the semester. And I actually wanted to post a couple also about direction for Kate Must Die and direction for Twabor, plus the rebranding and the renaming of it and that kind of stuff. So this stream has now gone... I don't know. I never know what those Twitch things mean. It says Monka. It's probably an emote of some kind. So the stream's been about an hour. It was a good stream. I had a really lively conversation. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. If you have not, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the favorite. Make sure you have notifications on for me. I really love having you guys come in and chat while we're doing this. It does make it better than just reading very dry or bland text. I did cover the whole survey. So after I end this, then you'll be able to go back and watch the video. Do not donate. Do not gift. Do not subscribe in any monetary way, as that's not what I'm doing here. But do favorite and turn notifications on, so that way I can have more chat with you guys. I'm going to end the stream now. I'm going to get some more coffee, maybe get a little bagel or something to eat, and then I'm going to probably pop back on because I need to do some more work with Kate Must Die. So if you're really bored, tune back in about 15-20 minutes. While I am doing a little bit more level polish for Kate Must Die, and we can get in some feisty conversations with that. Otherwise, I don't know when Pastor Jeb is streaming next, but if you're on Twitch, jump over and click on him and like him and follow him. He is hilarious to watch in how he screams at very not scary things. Otherwise, if he's not streaming right now, I see Copacabana is live. Cupcake's doing Overwatch. Amy Zinn is doing Metro Exodus over on Twitch. And We Love Games, which is my favorite Russian stream, is currently live playing Unreal Tournament. He is hilarious. He is fluent in Russian and English, and I think even German and French, but he's really funny. It's We Love Games over on Twitch. But anyway, thank everybody for tuning in. That's going to be it for Social Psychology with Scott. Have a good day, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.